right, good afternoon, everybody. I go by official iPhone time, and my iPhone tells me it's 1:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We always have a few more people jump on in the first 5 minutes or so. Thanks to those who are here and have already joined us. We've got about 15 people on the call, so welcome. Just a really quick note, I'm going to go ahead and hit the mute all button just to make sure that our background noise is limited. So as we go through the call, at any point where we're taking questions or having discussion, just double check that you are not muted, and you can unmute yourself. And let me just make sure. Chad, you are not muted, so when we get to you in just a moment, you won't have that problem. Okay, so jumping into it today, we have a wonderful presentation. We're thrilled to have FNAI, an FNAI representative, Chad Anderson, with us today to talk about what FNAI does overall, who they are, and then also what their role is with FISP and CISMA, because if you do not already know, they are a key partner for both FISP and the CISMAs around the state. We also have a new segment, which I'm totally unoriginally and cheesily calling Social Media Tip Time. We've gotten some feedback from CISMAs that they're interested in learning a little more about how to use different social media platforms and things like that. So we're going to try and implement this every call, every other call as they come in. Just give you guys some tips and pointers for how to make the best use of any social media you might be integrating into your program. We've got some exciting spring 2019 updates to go over with you today. Spring is getting super busy, but in a really good and productive way. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right into today's presentation with Chad, and I'm going to give him control and should be good to go.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for having us. We're just going to chat a little bit today about FNAI's role with CISMAs, but to start with, we're going to just talk more broadly about FNAI and what FNAI does, and a little bit more generally. There we go. So Florida Natural Areas Inventory was started back in 1981 as a partnership with TNC. We're part of a National Natural Heritage program, and we are the Natural Heritage Program for Florida. Now we're currently affiliated with Florida State University. We're part of the NatureServe network. We're pretty unique in that we work statewide, and we have a staff of approximately 24 botanists, ecologists, and every kind of genre of expertise in the ology realm to help assist with projects and serve as that extra helping hand. And we operate as a nonprofit, so it's another way that we're unique. Not getting the next slide. Sorry, not getting the next slide here. So I'm not going to read all this, but the gist is that we collect, interpret, and disseminate ecological information that's critical to the conservation of Florida's biological diversity, which of course is helpful to CISMAs in general as they seek to restore Florida's landscapes. So a lot of the free stuff and stuff that can help CISMAs or help you as a land manager is available right on our website. And so if you've been to it before, but maybe you haven't been to it recently, it's worth checking out. We're constantly updating this as we're getting new projects. We added this highlight bar in the middle so folks can keep up with some of the most sought after features on our website, but then also some of the newer projects. Always popular are our field guides, rare plant and animal field guides, a good handy field reference, maybe out for the exotics crews out in the field to have in the truck. Or you just have in your office as a reference. We have the Natural Community Guide, which is a great reference, so we're all speaking the same language about what a particular habitat is, what the species are, the composition. And the Atlas of Florida's Natural Heritage is a really great resource about everything related to Florida and its natural heritage. We have our Species and Community tab here that's got a ton of information. And one thing I want to highlight is our tracking list, where folks can go in there and search by group, by county, all the species that we track, so you know kind of what data we might have, and it'll even generate a report for you. That's really handy. We have our Conservation Lands tab here, which has a the database of all the conservation lands in Florida. It's being consistently updated, and it changes a lot more than you expect. And so that is a handy resource and a lot to keep a hold of for people here at the office. Maybe of most interest would be the Invasive Species tab, which has got species information. And one of our most popular workshops is the Native Exotic Lookalike, in which you can download the entire presentation if you can't make it to one of ours. We had presentations this last year in Gainesville and Tallahassee, which were very popular, and we're going to think we'll be moving to Central or South Florida this year. And so if you have any ideas of an area with great need, let us know. Also on this web page, there is a list of exotic species that we track, and then an information sheet for each. So a PDF with more detail and summary information on a JPEG that you could use for presentation for every single species, exotic species we track. So we have this Planning and Analysis tab, which is mostly large-scale landscape planning analysis, and lots of tools products that we've produced over the years that may be helpful, especially if you're managing exotics on a large landscape, say a water management district or something along those lines. Here's an example of the clip where we put together all these layers of biodiversity, landscapes, and water, things like potential habitat richness and rare species, and may help you if you're trying to prioritize areas across for treatment, say in a CISMA or something like that. We also take data requests on that tab, and then also some of the most popular things on the website are the Cooperative Land Cover Map, which is a map of the natural communities all across Florida that's widely used, and of course the invasive species data and the large data set that is available there. So one of the new projects I just want to highlight real quickly is Florida Longleaf Pine Ecosystem Geodatabase. This was a partnership with Florida Forest Service to map the extent of longleaf pine across Florida, and you can go on there and look at where we believe longleaf pine is extent based on extensive work with the foresters and our own work out in the field. And there's metrics in there that may be helpful to you, such as invasive non-native plant cover, things like that for you to explore. So FNAI does any number of projects from field work to heavy modeling and desktop exercises and combinations of them that can assist you in all kinds of land management activities. We'll highlight one quick little recent project that we've done. So we worked with the Forest Service on a historic natural community. This is the historic natural community of Apalachicola National Forest. And what that allowed them to do is we worked further to combine that with the current land cover, do some field work on categorizing and referencing with LiDAR data, and then being able to calibrate that and create a landscape map of ecological condition. And so just an example of the kind of projects we're working on. If you like more detail on that, you can look for this paper in Journal of Forestry by Traeger et al. It was published this year. So we track a number of rare plants, vertebrates, and invertebrates. We have more than 36,000 specific location records. It's a really comprehensive data set that allows for a number of different projects. And of course, our invasive plant database and over 209,000 occurrence records on conservation lands. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So a lot of the data original to EdMaps came from from FNAI. And so now that we've got all this information, we're collecting all this information, more specifically, how can it help your CISMA? Well, you can look at rare species locations or rare plant locations, kind of intersect the two, or intersect species habitats or an invasive plant density, maybe to prioritize treatments or areas of priority. This is an example from Myakka State Forest. We also, with our database, we're allowed to do other things that can help with planning. So like say our 2 lygodiums here. On the left there is an example of our old world climbing fern predictive model. And so maybe if you're in one of those northern CISMAs that's starting to see lygodium show up, maybe this could help you plan some work days or some survey days and look in areas that have suitability for it. It's just maybe it has not yet arrived. We do a lot of post-treatment monitoring. We have a standard process where we investigate tracks. This is something that we use. So we use line density tool we use to see where the contractor spent the most and the least time. We conduct the surveys, and the surveys usually provide a report that has pictures and descriptions, but also maps and percent control and delineated areas, and then a full listing, a full database that allows us to calculate percent control, biomass removed, acreage of infestation, and all those things with a reference for each point. And so it's a little plug for the value of monitoring. Everybody knows this. It's just a good reminder and something to think about frequently, is that it helps document the problem and show the success of treatment. And we'll talk about some examples. And of course, prioritizes and helps saves time when the contractors arrive. So as I talked about before, we worked with FWC over years, 2009 to 2011, and created this baseline survey. And so this was a comprehensive survey of almost 98% of all conservation lands, a lot of time in the field, 200,000 records, and allowed a lot of things to occur today that just wouldn't be possible. Knowledge about the state and where invasives are, and it's been a great resource. More small-scale surveys are also very helpful. We've been part of the Mimosa pigret effort to contain that species and help guide the treatment efforts down there. More recently with Tradescantia fluminensis, this is just an example of a really rapid assessment that can be done where you estimate percent cover in a given hexagon, allows you to make this really nice handy little density map. And this is a density map cold to hot here, showing where the infestations are centered, but also allows you some semi-quantitative ability to look at acres by percent cover class, and at certain densities. And then this is going to be part of a before-after study to working with FWC to see the effectiveness of treatment on the floodplain. So we also do some trainings, as I mentioned. More specifically, as I mentioned, the native exotic lookalike. We provide rare plant training, grass ID, sampling methodology, including invasive and plant mapping, GIS, GPS, all of which could be great training days or workshop days at CISMAs. We have a standardized mapping system, and some of that is the data collection forms stuff are available online or upon request, and can also be part of a training or data processing, and methods that we use, standardized methods that we developed over time. But we can also create plant reports just from the existing data that we're constantly collecting through all our efforts out in the field. This is an example of a CISMA scale analysis. And what this allows you to do is kind of get some quantitative numbers behind what the most frequently occurring species are, to help prioritize, or maybe see how things are changing over time and maybe how you need to change your priorities as species change. And this might even even if maybe you're a CISMA that say did this 4 years ago, 3 years ago, or something like that, this is going to be something that's going to change over time, and so it might be worth looking into again. We can also calculate gross acreage. And then this is a handy little thing that you can say in this example, we buffered the Treasure Coast CISMA by 150 miles and then looked at what species maybe weren't in the CISMA yet, but were in the area. And of course, this too is changing over time and kind of can help to shape that to be watch list or similar lists. So we can actually produce species maps and reports for you, and then also managed area reports. Or you can download the data yourself on the website, as I showed earlier. And then so part of our project with FWC has specific tasks to assist CISMAs. And so we'll go through some of those. So we're tasked with helping establish and accomplish CISMA goals, specifically participating on steering committees, working actively with or as the lead of the EDR committee, and conducting trainings like the ones I mentioned. We can travel to assist. We can, like I said, they can include invasive plant identification workshops, plant EDR surveys, field surveys, and identifying rare plant populations threatened by invasive plant occurrences, some of the work that I mentioned earlier. So we work with CISMA to find EDR plant lists, and so we can help you with that. We help update the lists as needed, and we evaluate new EdMaps records and incorporate those into CISMA lists as needed. And we can provide EDR surveys on public lands, but these are limited. And so if basically what we need is ideas, if that's the one message I could get across, is if you've got an idea or maybe just part of an idea that you think you may need and we might be able to help you with, it'd be worth just contacting us and kind of seeing what our priorities already for the year or where it fits in with what we're already doing and going from there. So just touch really briefly on our role with FISP. Mainly involved with strategic planning, the CISMA workshop at the FLEPSI conference, and the coordination of the website and the exotic plant mapping issues are kind of the highlights, but just assisting in any way we can. So with that, what can FNAI do for you or your CISMA? Is pretty much anything and a variety of things which are already free. So you can either find them on the website or contact any of us in the Advanced Invasive Plant Program here at FNAI. Feel free to do that anytime. And I'm sure I'll have some time for questions if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Chad. That was a great overview. So yeah, right now, does anybody have any questions specifically about FNAI and what they do or how they can work with your CISMA? Just remember that you probably are muted. If you have a question, you can unmute and let us know. I'll give folks a moment. Okay, so if we don't have any questions at this time, if you think of something, you can always type it into the Zoom group chat and I can send it on to Chad, or feel free to contact them at the email addresses provided here. And thanks again so much for that great overview. And just keep in mind that FNAI is a great resource for your CISMA and potentially even your agency for mapping and ID and locations and things like that. Okay, so sorry, go ahead, Chad.
I just said thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So jumping right into, for the folks who have joined since came on after the introduction, we're starting a new little social media tip of the month for our calls. This came from just getting feedback from CISMAs that they'd like to learn a little bit more about how to use social media, how to make the most of their efforts on it. And so just a disclaimer here as well, I am by no means a comprehensive social media expert. I've used it in various jobs that I've had. I'm using it currently for the Florida Invasive Species Partnership. But I do have resources here at the University of Florida for expertise on it, as well as I'm always happy to kind of help just be a research point of, okay, we need to answer this question. So if you have any specific questions, shoot me an email anytime and let me know, and we can see what we can dig up, either if I don't know the answer or we can find it and cover it here. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was finding content on Facebook. So essentially, if your CISMA or organization is thinking about getting into social media, specifically Facebook, and you haven't really done it before, one of your barriers or hesitancies may be, how am I going to find stuff to post? Do you feel this pressure to post with a certain frequency? And so there's some really easy and quick ways to make sure that you're finding good content to share with your followers. So I have a few main questions here to ask yourselves. One, are you following, if you're a CISMA, are you following FISP and the other CISMAs that have Facebook pages? So Big Scrub, Osceola, Heartland, Nature Coast, Southwest Florida, Suncoast, and East CISMA all currently have pretty active pages. So one thing we can do, and one thing we should be using this platform for, is to help leverage each other and the work each other's doing. So as the FISP Facebook page manager, I always try to share key posts from these different CISMAs on our platform. And for you, if you have a neighboring CISMA, you can always be sharing their information as well, and vice versa. Are you following all your partner pages? So within your region, my FWC has a statewide page, but does your regional office have a page, or does your regional IFIS? I think just about every IFIS extension has a page. So those are great resources to follow. And by what they're posting, there's oftentimes material to share. And then there's some other key partners that I personally follow with the FISP page and that I get a lot of my content from. So a great one for South Florida is the Croc Docs. This is a consortium of folks working on crocodile and other herp issues in South Florida. So they share a lot about tegus and python research that's coming out. The UF Invasive Plant Education Initiative is a great one. They post a lot of good resources. I'm often sharing their content. My FWC is another good one. And then the last question is, do you get news email updates from your organization that you work for? So you may not, but you may be getting them and just deleting them because you get too many emails and you don't have time to look at it. Here at UF, I get a daily kind of update of any news that UF or IFIS has been involved in. And more often than not, there's a story about invasive species in there that I can pull out and share. So if you're getting those from your organization and you're not really looking at them, they may be a good resource just to browse really quickly and say, are there any links here that I can share? So I want to show you real quick, so bear with me. I'm going to try to do some little interactive learning here. So now you should see the FISP Facebook page on your screen. And so the other element to this is that about 3 years ago, Facebook changed how you interact with the pages you manage. So unfortunately, it was not a good change for most people. It made it more complicated because what you used to be able to do when you managed a page, so I manage 2 pages. As you can see, I manage the Florida Invasive Species page, and then I manage another page with some friends that's just photographs and stuff. But for the Florida Invasive Species page, what you used to be able to do is go and view Facebook as your page you manage. So essentially, you see here where it says Emily, you would click view as my page, and this would change, and you would see FISP up here, and everything you were doing on Facebook would be definitely FISP. There would be no question about, am I doing this as myself or am I doing this as the organization I manage? Unfortunately, with the change, they took that option away, which is mysterious, and I don't think anybody really understands why they did that, but it made it a little more complicated. So one of the things I do is most of the pages that I follow, primarily for FISP, I like and follow as myself on my personal page, because most of the time, even if I'm just sitting at home scrolling, I might see something that I can then just quickly and easily share to FISP. But there is still a way to go, I'm already on FISP, there is still a way to view only the people you've liked as your page. So if you scroll down, you should see pages feed. So what this is going to show you is the feeds of all the pages that you have liked as your managed page. So this is where if you want to keep your personal Facebook and your managed page Facebook extremely separate and you're not liking or interested in the same things, or just if there's some organizations you just prefer to only follow by the page you manage, this is where you can see that easily in one place. So this is the feed of pages that the Florida Invasive Species Management or Florida Invasive Species Partnership page has liked. So I can scroll through this when I get in the morning and find some good content. Typically, I will find something about invasive species and I can share that. And I can usually do that within 5 minutes, first thing in the morning, and then I've done my part on my Facebook page for the day. Another element of this is typically you don't want to overpost. So if you're posting 1 post a day, that's great. I wouldn't post more than 3 posts a day. So if you're averaging, 5 posts a week or so, you're doing great. So I wanted to highlight, or I wanted to show you, so another thing that changed when they took away that ability to manage, to view Facebook as the page you manage, is it changed the way that you liked pages as your page. And I'm fully aware that this probably all sounds really convoluted, so I'm going to give you a resource that also explains it really quickly that you can revisit after this call. So I wanted to show you here. So here's a page that I haven't personally liked, and I also haven't liked as FISP. So the Florida Aquatic Plant Management Society is probably a site, a group that I could get some great content from. So now I'm on their site, and even though I went there, even if I went there from FISP, remember I'm still viewing Facebook as me. You can see up here by where it says Emily. So I'm going to like them. And what I just did was I liked them as myself, as Emily, as my personal page. If I want FISP to like them, I'm going to click here on these 3 dots, and I'm going to go to like as your page. Now, because I manage 2 pages, it's going to ask me which one. If you only manage 1 page, that one's going to be default, and it's just going to say, do you want your page to like this? So I'm going to select FISP, and I'm going to submit. And I'm going to say, okay, great. So now when I go back to this page, let's see, I'm going to refresh it. Now those posts from that organization will show up in my feed here. So if I just want to look at kind of a FISP specific feed, I'm going to go here. So let's see, let's go back to just the FISP homepage. And then just a few tips on this when you're doing it. Sometimes when you share a post, especially if it's just a link to the article, it won't share as the original post. So let's say that, let me see if I can find an example. Let's say I saw that Heartland CISMA shared a really cool link, which they did recently, and I want to share it too. But when I click share, actually, here's a great example, sorry. So recently, SFRC shared this really cool paper on the best look yet at tiny fungus storage units inside ambrosia beetles. Well, when I clicked to share this to the FISP page, it only gave me the article. It didn't show the original, whole original post from the Forest Resources from SFRC. So what I always like to make sure that I do when I'm kind of piggybacking content is kind of give credit to whoever I got this from or just whoever the information came from. And that does one of 2 things. One, it's just always courteous to credit folks that you're getting information from. And 2, it helps them see that you're sharing their information. So it increases engagement across partners, which is great. A great way to use this tool as well. So I'm going to stop there. Hopefully that was clear as mud for you all, but I'm going to try to pull the PowerPoint back up, and I'm going to show you this resource. So when I was trying to piece out, because when I started the FISP Facebook page, I hadn't managed a page for a while for an organization, and I didn't realize it had changed. based on those changes I mentioned to you about not being able to view as your page anymore. So I had to dig around for like, okay, how do I do all this? Because it's totally different than how it used to be the last time I did this. So I found a great YouTube video. It's about 10 minutes long. And if you want to just, again, this presentation will be posted, but if you can snap a pic of that, or because I know you can't actively click on this link, but this is from a social media professional at a totally different organization. She works for like a elderly care organization, but she is their social media content manager. And she gives a really great, clear walkthrough about how to manage your page, or how to manage a page you manage, and keeping it separate from your personal page after those changes 3 years ago. So it goes through how to like something as your page, how to view things page, and things like that. So it's a great resource. And again, these slides will be available on our website in about a week, so you can go back to this presentation and get this link. But I encourage you, if you're kind of having any trouble with that, keeping them separate and managing your page, this is a great quick 9-minute video to watch and walk you through it. So there you go. That's our first social media tip. Hopefully it made sense, and we'll keep sharing these as they come up. And again, please, if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to see, shoot me an email and we'll see if we can feature it and get any issues resolved that you may be having. All right, so moving along, I want to get into our exciting spring 2019 updates for everybody. We have the CISMA workshop at the FLEPC conference official date. So that's going to be Wednesday, March 27th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So if you're attending the whole conference, this is going to be actually the morning before the FLEPC conference officially gets started. So it gets started that afternoon. So our workshop is going to be that morning. For that reason, we are able to provide lunch, thanks to a few CISMAs that are chipping in on that. That way, if you're attending the whole conference, you won't have to kind of hustle to figure out, you'll be able to just kind of go straight and get ready to participate in the rest of the conference. So go ahead and put that on your calendars. It's going to be at the Shores in Daytona Beach. And this is really our one opportunity every year to get together in person and kind of work out some big issues or talk about some major projects we want to work on. So the theme for this year is going to be working with private lands. So I'm going to be reaching out to some folks in different CISMAs who have had some successful projects with this. So stay tuned for more in the agenda, but we just want to go ahead and get this date on your radar and let you know to start planning for that. If you're not going to the whole conference, but you're just attending the one day, we will be most likely asking for folks to do at least a one-day registration with the workshop, because they are providing the location, venue, and snack breaks and things like that, even though we're starting kind of the morning before the official conference kicks off. And then we've got, before that, we've got National Invasive Species Awareness Week. That's Saturday, February 23rd through Saturday, March 2nd. As you know, typically CISMAs around the state try to kind of just ramp up some outreach efforts during that week to gain some cohesion and getting the word out. So a lot of times they'll hold a workshop or a presentation, try and get some articles published, have some local proclamations for the week. And then at the FISP level, we really just try to amplify statewide, everyone's efforts and what you're doing. So in accordance with that, as we've been discussing for the past few months with folks, we're having our inaugural Weed Wrangle Florida event, and that's going to be on Saturday, March 2nd. So on the last call, we mentioned that this was most likely going to be the date, and so we're confirming that it will be Saturday, March 2nd. And I'm going to give you just a little more background on that now. So essentially our goal here, and for FISP, this is replacing the Halloween count effort that kind of had been going on for the last, I think, 3 years, because this predated my time here. But FISP had been kind of helping coordinate the Halloween as a statewide event, but then in looking back at how it had been going and kind of analyzing overall, we decided that it wasn't necessarily gaining the traction we had hoped, and so we're going to try something new. But just to be clear, if Halloween has worked well for your CISMA, we fully encourage you to continue with that event. It doesn't mean CISMAs can no longer do it. It just means FISP won't necessarily be trying to coordinate a statewide day. And if Halloween is a big event for you, you definitely don't have to feel pressured to then put on a big weed wrangle in the spring. That's okay too. But essentially our goal is to coordinate kind of this one annual statewide event to bring attention to invasive species issues at the state and local level. And it works well to collaborate and leverage it with NESA because a lot of CISMAs are already doing weed pulls during that time anyway. In the past, those had largely been air potato roundup or raid type events. And wonderfully, because of the beetle, there's fewer potatoes, so many sites have had to switch to other species anyway. So First Coast Working Group is a great example of this. They've been doing their air potato roundup during NESA for, gosh, going on 10 years now. So this year they're going to rebrand as the weed wrangle because they have already started switching to other species due to the low density of the air potatoes. So there's some resources available, and this information has also been sent to CISMA leads for the weed wrangle itself, which is a trademarked event by the Garden Clubs of America. And so FISP has signed a trademark agreement with them. And as part of that agreement, we are committed to reaching out to the 6 registered Garden Clubs of America in the state to include them and give them the opportunity to participate. So you can see here, 3 of those 6 fall within the Treasure Coast CISMA, and actually our liaison for the Garden Clubs of America in Florida is the president of the Grass River Garden Club, which falls within Treasure Coast CISMA. So Treasure Coast kind of has the bulk of that, and I will be helping connect folks that have a garden club in their CISMA with a contact to see kind of what role they may want to play. Other CISMAs that have a garden club are Sun Coast, East Central Florida, and First Coast. And to be clear, because this has been a question we've gotten quite a bit, there are tons of garden clubs in Florida, and your CISMA may have a number of them. They just aren't necessarily registered as Garden Clubs of America. So that doesn't mean they can't get involved. If you have a relationship with a local garden club, by all means, reach out and include them and see what they may like to do. We just have to do this particular step, again, because this is a registered trademark event for them. So I will be reaching out in November to kind of do some more concrete planning, getting commitments from the CISMAs who for sure are going to have a weed wrangle, and moving forward from there. So you'll hear more about this, and we'll get some more concrete planning going on in early November. And then I just want to go through a few quick reminders, see how we're doing on time. So we mentioned this last time. The Forest Stewardship Program is opening up its schedule for 2019 workshops. They typically host 3 to 4 per year in partnership with CISMAs. I know they're already kind of planning to work with North Central and Big Scrub. So if anybody would like to reach out and potentially talk about doing an invasive species workshop with them, you can contact Chris Demers, and his contact information is here. Also, we want to make sure we're highlighting potential grant opportunities for you guys. The FLEPC grants have not been announced yet, but we're just looking forward to, they should be announced soon. And there's 2 potential grants that CISMAs can apply for. The education grants, you can apply for up to $1,000 for a project. And then the CISMA grants are a pot of money. I think it's typically around $1,500. And so you can, it's kind of a mini grant situation. And if you have a small project for your CISMA, you can apply for that as well. They're pretty straightforward, pretty easy as far as grant applications go. So we'll make sure to keep you guys posted on these as we get updates. Also, just important to note that we do have a volunteer within the CISMA network who can help CISMAs administer grants. If the main thing holding you back is that you don't have someone to run the money through, there's someone with Treasure Coast Resource Conservation and Development who can help us with that. So that's Misty Spada. And there's also this link on our website at CISMA info, the CISMA Grant Administration FAQs, that gives you all the details you need to figure out how to move forward with that. And then lastly, just want to go into our upcoming CISMA call schedule. Most of you probably know we don't do calls in November and December. We just want you to enjoy your holidays and have a great season. So this is our last call of 2018. We will reconvene with everybody in January. I think I just said 2019. This is our last call of 2018. We will reconvene with everybody in January of 2019, and our first presentation will be preparing and submitting voucher specimens and why it matters. Patty Anderson with USDA is going to present on that important and interesting topic for us, and we'll get an update from Heartland CISMA. Our second call of the year will actually occur during NESA, and we're going to get a presentation from Dr. Stephen Enlow. He's going to give us an update on the glyphosate issues related to current events, the past trial that happened recently, and kind of the fallout from that, and the work that UF-IFIS is doing, and how they're kind of taking a stand on the issue. And then we'll focus on NESA and talk about what everybody's doing there. So I want to pause really quickly and just see at this time if anyone has any questions about all of that, about any of the stuff coming up in spring, or the weed wrangle or anything like that. Again, remember everyone is muted. So if you do have a question, unmute yourself and let me know. So I'll give you all the folks just a minute if anyone wants to chime in with a question.
Hey, Emily, this is Chad.
Hey, Chad.
You'll see a little, you had Greg, I think Greg's old email listed for the CISMA grant.
Okay, great. Thanks for catching that. Yeah, I see that in the chat box as well.
That's right. The new emails in the chat box. If anybody missed that.
All right, I'll make sure I update that. So for everyone, I'll go to that slide. So for the grant opportunities, yes, that's an old email address. Thank you so much for catching that. And you can see in the group chat box, Liz shared his new email, and I'll make sure to update that slide as well. So great catch, thank you. And remember as well, you can always use the chat box. I try to keep an eye on it during calls if you have questions or just want to throw something out to everybody. And then let's see if I have this queued up. If we can take a moment to provide feedback on the call. Oh, here we go. Okay, so hopefully everyone is seeing the poll. So if you can just take a quick minute to provide your feedback, I'll give everyone just one moment to do that, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time and providing your feedback. Just a reminder, our monthly calls are every fourth Wednesday except November and December. So we won't talk again until January. I hope everybody has a great holiday season. Our past calls are available online. It usually takes about a week to get them up. So next week, if you want to review this call, check out our website and it should be there. And thanks again to everyone for joining us, and I look forward to talking with you in the new year.